So now let's move on to question number 4. Anthropologist Kristian J. Carlson and colleagues examined the fossilized clavicle and shoulder bones of a 3.6 million year old early hominin known as Littlefoot. They found that these bones were blank, the clavicle and shoulder bones of modern apes that are frequent climbers such as gorillas and chimpanzees, suggesting that Littlefoot had adapted to life in the trees. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Is it A, surpassed by, B, comparable to, C, independent of, or D, obtained from? So there's some early hominin, and they have examined the fossilized clavicle and shoulder bones of a 3.6 million year old fossil, and they found that these bones they're basically comparing the clavicle and shoulder bones of modern apes that are frequent climbers, and those are gorillas and chimpanzees. We can clearly see that there is a comparison, so choice B is the best answer because it most logically completes the text discussion of the fossilized bones of the hominin known as Littlefoot. As used in this context, comparable to would mean similar. They are trying to compare two similar beasts or animals. The text indicates that the relationship between the fossilized clavicle and shoulder bones of Littlefoot and the clavicle and shoulder bones of frequent climbers such as chimpanzees and gorillas suggests that Littlefoot had adapted to moving around trees. This context suggests that the relationship between the fossilized bones of Littlefoot and the bones of chimpanzees and gorillas is one of similarity. The Littlefoot fossils are likely comparable to the modern ape bones. A is surpassed by, this is incorrect because if the fossilized bones of Littlefoot were surpassed by or exceeded by or made inferior to the bones of modern apes that are frequent climbers, it wouldn't suggest, as the text says, that Littlefoot was adapted to moving around in trees. Here, if they found that these bones were surpassed by, then the later part says that suggesting that Littlefoot had adapted to. That means they are trying to see something which was backward or something which they thought was not adapted to. They are comparing them to the modern day apes. Okay. If anything, learning that Littlefoot's clavicle and shoulder bones were surpassed by those of chimpanzees and gorillas would suggest that Littlefoot was poorly adapted to climbing. Then choice C, independent of, is incorrect because if Littlefoot's fossilized clavicle and shoulder bones were independent of or not influenced by or affiliated with the bones of modern apes that climb often, it wouldn't suggest, as in the text, that Littlefoot was adapted to moving around in trees. So if it was independent of, they wouldn't have compared the modern gorillas to Littlefoot at all. And choice D, obtained from, this is incorrect because the text indicates that the Littlefoot's fossilized bones date to 3.6 million years ago. So they couldn't have been obtained from or acquired from the bones of modern apes. So how can we acquire a 3.6 million year old fossil from or obtained from modern apes? That doesn't make sense. So the best answer is B because they're making a comparison with a very old 3.6 million year old animal to the modern apes, which are frequent climbers. They're making a comparison between two climbers of trees. So I hope that's clear.